But I can understand anti-Muslim hatred, because when you see Muslim terrorists, when you see a government that's trying to impose Sharia law, when you see Muslim rape gangs...
The government's not trying to impose Sharia law. That's utter rubbish.
No, when they allow Sharia courts, when they're trying to impose Islamophobia laws, when they're allowing Muslim rape gangs to get away with it, obviously there is Muslim hatred. That's all they see. You can't blame them, because some Muslim communities come to this country and expect the country to change for them. And when it doesn't, they're called racist. But there's nothing racist about trying to protect your values, British values and way of life. It's called patriotism. And that's something that Labour have to recognise. We are not a Muslim country, and those that come here who are Muslim have to recognise that and not try and impose their way of life on others.
And I think reform needs to learn that taking individual crimes by individual Muslim people and then aligning that with the whole of the Muslim community is wrong, reprehensible, and it is racist.
But we don't do that. But we don't. I'm Muslim myself. No, we don't. I don't blame my father or my family for the Muslim rape gangs. That is a particular group of disgusting men.
Absolutely.
And it's got nothing to do. Absolutely. But your party looked it over, and your party is still trying to cover it up. Yes, they are. They're trying to silence them. So when you have
this government is trying to change the law to allow previous cases that had been turned down to be properly investigated, and thousands of cases are coming forward.
Why was it turned down, Bill? Because your councillors and your MPs and your party looked it over. That's why. And it's only now that you're under public pressure to look it over that you're opening up again.
I've debated this issue before, Layla. Go back to the 2012, 2013, when Keir Starmer, as Director of Public Prosecutions, was one of the first people to grip this issue and say there's a real problem with grooming gangs and we need to overturn the law.
He wasn't part of the Labour Party then, and 250,000 girls were groomed and tortured in Labour constituencies, and your councillors and your MPs looked it over, looked the other way to protect their votes.
True.
So when the public see that we have a political party that is pandering to a Muslim vote, debating whether it's a criminal offence to criticise Islam, allowing Sharia courts to flourish, and then overlooking Muslim rape gangs, and then we have a prevent system that is actually chasing so-called far-right fantasy crimes and denying
the biggest number of referrals to the prevent programme are on the far right.
Well, that is a problem, because
we have had
no terrorist attacks in this country from the so-called far right. We have had it from Islamic terrorists.
What about the guy who murdered Joe Cox? What about the man that murdered Joe Cox?
Listen, I'm not overlooking that. It was a terrible thing.
You just overlooked it.
No,
you just said there's no evidence of far-right extremism, and there was a far-right extremist who murdered a Labour MP.
Relax. Yeah,
I'm not relaxing, because I get very angry when you disgracefully misrepresent the picture.
Are you saying that far-right terrorism is a bigger danger to this country than Islamic terrorism? Is that what you're saying?
I think they're both a threat and a danger to this country.
Do you think they're an equal threat?
And I actually think...
Wow. So you're comparing one horrific death to July 7th, the bridge. You're comparing that to one death. We have ISIS. We have so many Islamic terrorists. We have the Muslim Brotherhood that has infiltrated this country through the boat. And you are saying that Prevent should focus on far-right extremism.
No,
you have lost the plot, mate. You've lost the plot, Bill.
I'm talking about the referrals by the agencies to the Prevent programme, and the majority or the biggest number are on the far right. I actually think... Hold on.
Defunct. Prevent has no use.
You've got to stop interrupting.
I'm interrupt the Perrier. I'm going to the White House. Goodbye.
You are watching one of the most intense and unrestrained political confrontations Britain has witnessed in many years. And in truth, it explains a great deal about why the country feels so deeply split right now. On one side, there is a Labour MP struggling to defend his party's record under heavy pressure. On the other, a Reform councillor who is no longer willing to accept years of avoidance, silence and repeated excuses. This was not a normal exchange of views. It became a direct and forceful political showdown. As soon as the discussion turned to Islam, extremism, grooming gangs and Sharia courts, the atmosphere changed completely and the discussion spiralled. What matters here is this. The Reform councillor was not criticising ordinary British Muslims. Her focus was on Labour's double standards, its refusal to confront uncomfortable facts, and its long-standing failure to deal with serious problems within its own constituencies. Yet the Labour MP responded by branding every challenge as racism, relying on that accusation as a way to shut the conversation down. This time, it did not work. The councillor clearly stated what millions across the country already believe. When people settle in Britain, they are expected to respect and adapt to British values, not expect the country to bend around them. Despite this, Labour politicians often act as if saying this out loud is somehow unacceptable. And that reaction, more than anything else, shows why so many people feel ignored and frustrated today. Rather than confronting the failures around grooming gangs, rather than admitting mistakes on extremism, and rather than listening to the real fears felt by local communities, they fall back on the same worn-out routine every time. You are racist, you are overreacting, you do not understand the facts. But the Reform councillor came prepared with hard evidence. She pointed to the 250,000 girls who were abused, the cases that were ignored, the officials and councillors who turned a blind eye, and Labour's fixation on protecting certain voting blocks instead of standing up for victims who were failed again and again. And the Labour MP had no real answer. What followed was denial, discomfort, and visible emotional panic. Each time he was backed into a corner, he tried to steer the discussion toward far-right referral statistics, as if figures on a spreadsheet could somehow cancel out the lived reality of terrorism, grooming scandals, and public fear. Numbers were used as a shield, not as an explanation. Then came the moment that stunned everyone watching. He tried to equate one horrific murder with years of ISIS attacks, 77, the bridge attacks, and radical networks openly operating across the UK. It was a complete breakdown in reasoning, and the councillor spotted it immediately. She did not let him escape it. She made it clear that Prevent is failing. Communities do not trust it. And the government continues to act as though the threat is something smaller and safer than it truly is. This exchange was not just intense. It laid bare a deeper problem in how Labour politicians deal with uncomfortable truths. Every time the Reform councillor raised a clear and specific failure, the Labour MP responded the same way: deny, distract, deflect. What viewers witnessed was political cowardice in plain sight. This clash was never really about Islam. It was about honesty versus spin, courage versus fear, and a Labour Party that appears more focused on defending its narrative than defending the people it claims to represent. And today, that carefully maintained facade finally began to crack.